Srila Prabhupada ki jai. We are continuing from last Wednesday. I can't even remember what we spoke about. I think we ended up speaking about racism in Krishna consciousness, because that's the hot topic right now because of the police violence. And we were meant to be reading about the nature of the spiritual world, and we had so many questions and so much discussion that we didn't read anything, which is unfortunate. And today I was reading a little bit about the spiritual world from the Brihad Bhagavatamrita. And one thing that I discovered, which is very interesting, which you probably already know, but it was just interesting to read it in this context, is that anything that Krishna does, whatever he does, he only does it because it'll give pleasure to the devotees. And anything the devotees do, they only do it because it'll give pleasure to Krishna. And externally, it may not appear like that. For example, Krishna was in Dwarka, and in this story, Satyabhama became very upset with Krishna. And then the acharyas comment that she knew that this would give Krishna pleasure. So, see, it was not like an emotional response like we would have. Like there's a situation, or Krishna does something she doesn't like, or someone does something she doesn't like and she's upset. Or in this case, upset with Krishna. Why would Satyabhama be upset with Krishna? He did something she didn't like. No, that's only external. But she knows the moods that will make him happy, give him pleasure. And he, in certain cases, when she understands that he would be happy, it would please him if she acted in a contrary way, then she does that. So it appears like she's giving him a hard time, but actually she's only doing it because it will make him happy. So we have to see, when we see the spiritual world, we have to see through that lens. That it's only, that whatever the devotee does, even if it looks like it's not pleasing to Krishna, they only do it because it is pleasing to Krishna. Similarly, we have this situation of Krishna leaving Vrindavan and not going back for a very long time. And then naturally one wonders if the Brajbasis were so distressed in his absence, and he was so distressed even in their absence, because he would think about them, why didn't he go back? There are many reasons he didn't go back, and all the reasons were in relation to them. Like what would be best for them. So externally, it appears it would be best for them if he went back. Krishna is so cruel, he's not going back to Vrindavan. But when you find out all the reasons he didn't go back, they were all in consideration of what would be best for them. And for example, he felt that if he went back, when they saw him, their emotions would be so intense, they would basically be dysfunctional. They wouldn't be able to function. He also felt that if he went back, they would always be in anxiety that he's going to leave, even though he's there. Oh, but what if he leaves again? How will we deal with this? So it would put them in more anxiety, make them dysfunctional, put them in more anxiety. And if he had to leave, which inevitably he knew he had to take care of business outside of Vrindavan, then if he comes back and leaves again, that would completely destroy him. And the fourth reason is that he could see that what they were experiencing in separation, the ecstasy, was actually greater than what they experienced in his presence, so that he didn't want to disturb that ecstasy of separation by coming back, because they were so much more merged in Krishna consciousness. So that's interesting, isn't it? And from the external view, it seems like he should just go back and pacify them because they're suffering. But when looked through this lens, that he only does what will please his devotees, what is the best for his devotees, and he wanted to go back also, and he didn't go back because he, at least not for many years, because he didn't think it would be the best thing for his devotees. So this is the spiritual world. The devotee understands what will please Krishna and only does that which will please Krishna, even if externally it looks like they're doing something that's not pleasing to Krishna. And Krishna will only do what pleases the devotees, even if externally it doesn't look like he's pleasing the devotees. And of course, in this world, sometimes he does things and it looks like, well, why would Krishna allow this to happen? And we understand, maybe not completely or fully, but we understand on some level that this is what the devotee needs to help them in their bhakti. And it's something that Krishna's doing to massage them, so to speak, massage the Maya out of us that we had discussed. I don't know if it was in this class or another class. We had discussed a situation, a devotee. Yeah, it was yesterday. If you weren't there, we had discussed a situation where a devotee had just lost her mother and how to deal with that. And I was saying how when things like that happen, I find it's such a opportune time to remember that I chose to come into a world where there is death. So I chose to come into a place where there is suffering. And that was a bad choice. And I shouldn't make that bad choice again. That I should, as Prabhupada said, finish your business in this life. I should finish my business in this life. So even the bad can become sometimes maybe even a necessary impetus. So that's the way Krishna works. So I just wanted to relate that this morning. I think it's really the essence of bhakti. Because love means to please the other person, to please the senses of the other person. And it's very difficult to find love in this world. It's very difficult to find someone who could only think of the welfare of another person. Isn't it? It's difficult for us only to think of the welfare. Like you get married and you think, okay, I love this person, I want to make them happy. But you also think how they will make you happy. So there's some love, but it's not pure. And Prabhupada said, well, the love of a mother, that's as pure as it gets in this world. And many people will say, yes, my mother had intense love for me, but she had many expectations. Like, okay, you have to, I took care of you when you're young. This is what I need for you to do for me now. Or I had career expectations for you. Or had expectations you would become a certain kind of devotee or a certain kind of person. So it's not without expectation. It can't be as pure. Nothing in this world can be as pure as the love of the spiritual world. It can get close, but it can't be that pure. So in that pure state, completely free from the modes of nature, they actually don't think about their own pleasure. I don't think we have experience of that in this world. I mean, we can get close to it sometimes. Or even if someone is not thinking about their own pleasure and they're trying to help another person, after that's over, they'll think about their own pleasure because we have a body. Naturally, the body has demands. The mind has demands, and we think how to fulfill them. When you don't have a material body, you have no material demands. And then you can think, then you can actually have love because you don't have a physical body to love. Like we love this body. So how can there be pure love if your consciousness is absorbed in this body and how to make it happy? Right? You agree? You understand? Does that make sense? Tiene sentido, as they say in Spanish. Does that make sense? Or it means, do you feel it? Do you feel what I'm saying? And so, in Krishna consciousness, when you're trying to understand something, that in the beginning you might say, well, I understand it theoretically, but I don't have experience of it. And so as you study Krishna's pastimes, you get that your experience of it is studying his pastimes because you see through the experience of the pure devotee. And then you start to understand, oh, this is what love is. I thought love was something else. And then you understand, oh, this is what love is. And because if you want to develop love, obviously you have to understand it. And then you understand it through the lives of the devotees. Just like Krishna sent Uddhava to Vrindavan to meet the residents of Vrindavan because their love was higher than the residents of Braja. And the only way that he would understand it was to meet them. So in that sense, you're meeting them through the Bhagavatam. You're meeting the pure devotees, you're seeing what they're doing, and then you're noticing, oh, this is what love is. And then you start to realize that what you call as love is just a desire, in many cases, just a physical desire. You know, it's so unfortunate that that word love is so misused. And that word love is used as a synonym of sexual desire. And that's so unfortunate because it's the exact opposite. It has nothing to do with it. So when, you know, in our discussions, we're gradually now evolving our discussions to the spiritual world. And in the beginning of our discussions of the spiritual world, this is a little more philosophical, but we'll evolve it into understanding the heart of the pure devotee, because that essentially is the spiritual world. Like we're reading, you know, like the spiritual world is not a physical location. It's where there is pure bhakti. That's the spiritual world. Material world is where there is not pure bhakti, and that's, you know, we may say, okay, there's a spiritual world transcendental to this world. Of course, there is, but at the same time, one can exist within the spiritual world, even within a physical body in this physical dimension, if there's pure bhakti. So that's where we're going in Krishna consciousness, and that's the goal of Krishna consciousness. And the more we understand about it, then the more we'll understand the pastimes. The more free we are from lust, the more we'll understand the pastimes, because there's no lust in those pastimes. And when you have lust in your heart and you're trying to understand the pastimes of Krishna, that lust, it kind of camouflages our ability to understand the lilas, because we'll tend to see those lilas through the lens of our own lust. And we're not actually seeing those lilas. Just like, you know, Prabhupada has said, Bhaktivinoda Thakur said, if you commit offenses to the holy name, you could chant 100 rounds a day and not make any advancement, which is an interesting statement, to say the least. But you could apply it to the lila. It said, if you have lust in your heart, and so much of it that you can't understand the lila, then even though you hear the lila and you see the lila, still you don't understand it. So the prerequisite is some degree of purity. Because if you don't have some degree of purity, how will you understand something that's the purest? Like Rasa Lila, that's the purest of the pure. How will you understand that at all, even a little bit? Unless, to the degree that we're free from lust, to that degree we begin to enter into the understandings. And that's the real, what I would call the prize of bhakti, that as you become free from lust and as you become pure, then you're rewarded with an understanding of what love is and an experience of it. And as you try to enjoy this world, it blocks you from entering that world. And so it becomes a paradox. In the name of enjoyment, you lock yourself out of the room of love, of bhakti, and then you can't experience that. So when you're doing austerity, you're making sacrifice, and you think, oh, this is so hard, this is so difficult, I don't like austerity. Just think it's preparing you to enter that room of love so that you're qualified to enter it and you're qualified to experience it. That's what it's doing. And so that's the greatest reward. And then when you're in that consciousness, then when you read the Bhagavatam, it penetrates more deeply. When you chant the holy name, it penetrates more deeply. So it's not something material where I just chant Hare Krishna or I just read the pastimes and it affects everybody in the same way. Like if we all stood around fire, we would all get warm. If we all put our hands in the fire, it would all burn. So imagine a situation where someone puts their hand in the fire and it doesn't burn. I think it was Satchidananda Swami. I don't know if it was his example or he read this. He said, chanting Hare Krishna, sometimes it's like putting your hand in fire with a glove on, like a fireproof glove. It doesn't get burnt. So if the heart is very impure, then okay, so your hand's in the fire, you have the glove on, you feel the heat a little bit, it's not going to burn. So it's like that. It's like we come in touch with the light of lila or the light of the holy name, but you don't feel much. Of course, you'll say, but isn't it that by hearing, I'll become pure? By chanting, I'll become pure? Yeah. If you're in the right mood, yes, that's true, you will be. And that's my point, that as you become more pure, then hearing is going to have a stronger influence on you, and chanting is going to have a stronger influence on you. Seeing the deities or association, everything is going to influence you more strongly because you're more free from the lower modes of nature, and then more of the holy name gets in, more of the lila gets in. It becomes more attractive. And I think you experience this when you go to Vrindavan and you go to Mayapur, isn't it? You experience like, well, now I'm hearing the lila in the place where it happened, in the association of hundreds or thousands of devotees, and sometimes you have this experience, isn't it, where it like hits you, wow, oh, that's what love is, or that's why Krishna did this, or that's why the gopis did that, or something hits you, or that's so funny, or that's so transcendental. And maybe you heard the story before and it didn't hit you that way. So now you're evolving more, you're in this more ideal environment, and so that you're more affected by it. So that's how you make advancement. And that's also how you hold yourself back from making advancement. If there's too much personal desire, then you're hearing, you're chanting, but it's not having much effect. And we see that with a lot of devotees. They feel like, oh, I'm not making advancement. Or they say, I'm chanting, but nothing's happening. Well, this is part of the reason. It's not, the holy name is pure, but it's not penetrating. It's like you have a wall. And it's not penetrating this wall of lust and desire. So it's like, oh, I'm not feeling anything. Well, basically, maybe we could say, instead of saying I'm not feeling, and say the holy name's not penetrating, or I become numb, my heart's numb, I have a glove on my hand. It's not that the holy name is not, or the lila, or whatever spiritual sadhana we're doing, it's not that it doesn't have heat, it's just there's a glove on, so I don't feel it. So if that's happening, that's a red flag. Okay, something with my lifestyle, something with my consciousness, something about what I'm attached to, something about what I'm thinking. We have this story. Was it Raghunath Das Goswami? Whenever he'd read the Bhagavatam, he would be crying. We have the story of that blind Brahman. He would read Bhagavad Gita. He would be crying. And when was the last time you were crying when you read Bhagavad Gita? When was the first time? Was there a time? I think for most of us, say, well, actually, I never cried reading Bhagavad Gita. Maybe I almost cried. Maybe I felt like crying. Maybe I experienced joy. But it's just an example that as you become pure, you become affected emotionally. I mean, if you read about Krishna and the gopis, which of course is the highest, there's so much emotion there because that's the nature of love. It's full of emotion. Krishna's experiencing intense emotion, the gopis are experiencing it, like very, very deep emotions. And all the various symptoms of bhav and prema, well in this case prema, are exhibited. And so what's the opposite of that? The opposite is, well, I chant, I hear, and it's like I don't feel anything. That's I would say, like the curse of Maya. And it's like, it's the reward, so-called reward, for enjoying materially, is that you get the curse of Maya, and then you can't appreciate emotionally as much as we should. Like sometimes we see in our japa retreats, when devotees are in this ideal environment to improve their japa, and they're chanting and they're being guided, and there's some pretty intense emotional experiences going on that don't go on normally, because the potential for those emotional experiences exists within the holy name, within the hearing of Bhagavatam, within the kirtan. But you know the example, hard-hearted. The heart is hard, and when the heart is hard, then no bhava takes place. And the only bhava that takes place is in relation to material things. So we don't have emotion in relation to the spiritual, we have emotion in relation to the material. Isn't that sad? So I would use this information. I mean, this is what I got from reading Brihad Bhagavatamrita this morning. I should have been studying for this class, but I thought, well, Brihad Bhagavatamrita is also about the spiritual world. So in preparing for this class every day, I study about the spiritual world, but I haven't read regularly the Bhagavatamrita lately, and I wanted to read it. And so I went right to the end of the first volume, just to see what was there. And it was all about Krishna in Dwarka feeling separation from Vrindavan, and then Vishwakarma building like a Disneyland, a Vrindavan Disneyland. And he actually built dioramas of the residents of Vrindavan. They looked exactly like them. They just couldn't do anything to fake Krishna out so he would be relieved of his anxiety. And it worked. So anyway, as I was reading that was, there was so much emotion. Krishna was so distraught in Dwarka because he was feeling separation. And then it came to the description of Krishna and the gopis and the separation and why he doesn't go back. And basically, the message that was coming out of the pages of Brihad Bhagavatamrita was like, there's so much emotion involved in the rasa between Krishna and his devotees. And of course there's so much emotion in this world, but the emotion is more evolving around things that we like. There it's the emotion of pleasing him. But in any case, the fact that there's so much emotion, it's very important for us, because as you advance in Krishna consciousness, there'll be more emotion, which means there's more feeling towards Krishna, less feeling towards Maya. As you're more neophyte, there's more feeling towards Maya, right? There's more emotion towards material things. So you as you progress, you feel emotions that you were feeling materially, you feel them in relation to Krishna. And that's what we want. And I was thinking, how sometimes we try to control our emotions in the material world, but spiritually it's all about letting your emotions go crazy in relation to Krishna. So if you're an emotional person, then you can apply your emotional nature to Krishna and hearing about Krishna, and you can cry when Krishna leaves Vrindavan, and you can jump up and down when he returns to Vrindavan. You can use your emotion that way. And I've said many times, it's like anything. Emotions are like anything. If you don't use them for Krishna, then they'll get used for something, because we're emotional beings. We're not stones. We have feelings. So if the feelings aren't for Krishna, they're going to be for something else. And so as you evolve, or we could say also as a symptom of your advancement, to know, you will see your feelings in relation to Krishna become stronger, and your emotions in relation to Krishna become stronger, and your emotions in relation to material things become more like, well, what do you think about that? I don't think about it. How does that make you feel? Nothing. Oh, well, what about this story in Bhagavatam? Oh yeah, that makes me feel this. So the feelings are in relation to the stories. Mm. Yeah, like Satya Rupa says, I don't know the separation of the gopis. But in reading about Krishna in the mood of separation, she's saying, I'm attracted to that. It's very, because it's the highest feelings of love, separation. So I don't know it, but also when I was reading, I was thinking the way Krishna consciousness is, it's very interesting, because you're introduced to concepts that you've never heard before. You're introduced to a reality you've never experienced. And so you first time you heard about Vrindavan, the first time you heard about separation, first time you heard about the gopis, and you're trying to get your head around this. Okay, let me try to understand this. And then you read about it, you discuss it, you hear about it, and at some point, it's like, bing! It's like, you got a little glimpse. Oh yeah, I think I understand something. Isn't it? And that's the reward of being a devotee. You get a little ping. Today, I understood a little more about Mahaprabhu. I understood a little more about mercy. I understood a little more about separation. I understood a little more about the gopis. I never understood. And today when I was reading, I understood this. Ping. That's the way it works. It's very gradual because we're so contaminated. It's like, you chant, you hear, you serve, you associate, you do all these things, and then bing! Maybe it's going to be 10 days from now you'll get a bing, or 10 weeks, you don't know. And you hear something that you've heard before, and all of a sudden it's like you just got knocked up a notch to the next floor. Oh, I understand this a little more deeply than I did before. This is amazing. And so your whole life in Krishna consciousness, it's just getting knocked up notch by notch by notch of deeper understanding. And that's the reward, that you get to understand Krishna. You get deeper realization. That's the reward of bhakti. It's the realization and experience. And that realization and experience comes in proportion to our ability to maintain some strictness and control ourselves and control our minds, control our attitudes, have the right dealings with devotees. And so it's like everything, right? And so the more you do that, then the more you're susceptible, so to speak. You're in the state where you can read something and have it, wow, that was heavy. I read that before, but I never felt like this. Or I can chant the holy name and like, well, I never felt that way before. Go back to the idea of the hard heart. My heart is like steel. What does that mean, steel heart? It means I don't feel anything. I chant Hare Krishna, and what do I feel? I just feel like going to sleep, or I feel like doing something else, or I feel like I don't want to do this. That's the symptom of the hard heart. And, we have to look at that. You go to the doctor. My doctor, doctor says, what are the problems? And my heart is hard. What are the symptoms? I chant and I fall asleep. I chant and I get distracted. I read Bhagavatam, I fall asleep. I put it down after a minute. And then he starts asking, what are you eating? Are you eating only prasadam? Are you exercising? Do you do your sadhana right? He's asking all the questions. Are you around any cell towers? You live too close to cell, and that's bad association. He's like asking all these questions, like why you have no taste, what's going on here. So you ask yourself those questions. But in general, it boils down to the idea that if I don't have a taste, something, if I'm completely dull, it boils down to something in our service and sadhana has to be corrected, because we should be feeling something a little bit. Maybe in the beginning you won't feel so much, but as you progress you should be feeling. And ultimately, the perfection is, or the preliminary perfection is bhava, where you're now feeling 8 kinds of ecstasies manifested physically when you're doing service. And I got some insight into bhava from distributing books at the airport, because the airport is like where all separation and meeting takes place. And in Krishna consciousness, you have this idea. You meet Krishna, there's a certain kind of ecstasy, and you're separated from Krishna. And so the airport, you're either sending someone off, or you're meeting someone you haven't seen in a while. And emotions are extremely high. Not for everybody, but especially, like if it's your son and he's just come back from a war zone and he comes back alive and you haven't seen him in a year. Whoa! There's a lot of happiness meeting. Or he's going off to the war. It's like intense separation. You may never see him again. I'm looking at that, these emotions, very, very high emotions. And I'm thinking, yeah, that's exactly the emotion. These are not exactly the emotions, but these are the reflections of the emotions that we're reading about in Shastra, of meeting and separation. And how it's like such a waste of that emotion to waste it on something material. And we do it all the time. Our emotions are meant for Krishna. Our emotions are meant to bring us closer to Krishna. Isn't it? So, that was introduction. I wanted to chant Jairada. That was my introduction to Jairada Madhava. So, Krishna Karshan, I will get to your question. I'm going to hold it. Because if I don't stop talking now, we're not going to chant. And I think we should chant. Shouldn't we? That was a half-hour introduction. Anyway, as you know, I sometimes give introductions based on what is going on in my head at the moment. So that's what, if you examine my head at this moment, that's what you would find. So, let me just get my keyboard. Radha Madhava. Now, the question is, do you cry? Do you cry when you chant Radha Madhava? And sometimes Prabhupada did, and he would have to catch himself. He'd have to stop himself from crying. What do you feel when you chant Jai Radha Madhava? Anything? Do you feel anything? Oh, I feel something, Prabhu, something, yeah. That's good. Hopefully you feel something. This was a song Prabhupada introduced in India. We never heard it before a class. I think it was a public program. And then he just had us chant every morning before class. Also the Govinda prayers. When I was a young devotee, we used to chant Govinda before class in the morning. Chintamani prakritishadaman sukha pavriksha. We would chant that, a few verses. It was considered, Mahaprabhu considered it most auspicious to chant. So we would chant. And then the Jamuna's, the Radha Krishna temple came out, and then Prabhupada said, play that every morning. And that was instituted after I joined at some point. So it's interesting also the Nrsimhadev. There's a lot of things you take for granted that when I joined, we didn't, they weren't there. The Namaste Nrsimhaya, that came after apparently there was an attempt to bomb the Los Angeles temple, and Prabhupada said you should do this. When Mayapur was attacked, you should establish a Shringan deity. There's interesting histories there. Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Jai Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Gopi Janavallabha Girivarata Hari Gopi Janavallabha Girivarata Shodhanandana Brajajana Ranjana Sudanandana Brajajana Ranjana Shwaranandana Brajajana Ranjana Shwaranandana Brajajana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Banachari Jamuna Tira Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivara Dhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivara Shodhanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Shodhanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Shodhanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Shodhanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Is there anything that can compare to the holy name anywhere? I don't think so. So sweet. And we deprive ourselves of the sweetness, unfortunately, by our own lust. We can't experience it, our own lack of good sadhana, our own wrong thinking. But there's so much nectar there, and so don't deprive yourself of the nectar. Okay. So we have a question continuing the conversation of being able to experience Krishna consciousness more deeply. Is it not that we should hear or read things on the level we are at? For me, lilas between Krishna and the gopis are too high. Hearing these things, I have some feelings, but I think those feelings might be not pure, be contaminated with lust. So I personally avoid listening to such topics. That's true, and it's not true. It's true if there's too much lust, it's said that by hearing those pastimes you become free from lust, but that's qualified. You have to qualify that hearing, that you're hearing in the right mood and you're hearing with the right understanding of Krishna and the gopis. And so if you hear with the right understanding, if you're seeing it philosophically, like this story. You remember I played that story a few weeks ago of Krishna and the gopis, on how they came for the rasa dance, and Krishna was saying, leave, you don't belong here, it's late, you have to go home, you have your families. And I said, no, we can't leave. And then they danced together, then Krishna left them, then he came back and they went in Jamuna. So, it was so beautiful. I will release that soon. I redid that recording. I'm promising you all these things that you haven't gotten yet, but you'll get them. And so if you hear it in the right way and you understand it in the right way, then it will have the effect of purifying you. At the same time, it is said that if one is not in the right mood or there's too much lust, it could backfire. And then instead of us becoming purified from lust, it would excite our desire to imitate Krishna. And last night my wife said, there's a lot of dirty dishes and pots and like that, and it was late and I was tired. She said, can you clean them? I said, okay, I'll clean them. And then I was joking, I said, because I was so tired, and I was washing the dishes, and I was joking, saying, it's really hard to play God here. You come to material world to play God, and you end up having to wash dishes at like 10:30 at night when you're tired and you want to go to sleep. It's hard to play God. So it's really this desire to imitate Krishna is really difficult, and it creates so many problems. And so when that desire to imitate Krishna is subdued enough, and then you hear those lilas, then you'll become purified. But it's true that we have to hear those lilas with caution, because it could backfire. And as Prabhupada said, instead of purified, you become putrefied. So it's possible it could, the very thing that is meant to purify lust could increase it if we're not careful, if we don't understand it properly. But if we understand it properly, then what will happen is you'll better understand what is love, because that's the solution to lust, is to understand what is real love. And to practice real love. And that's what bhakti is all about. You remember we told that story, and Prabhupada told this man who was criticizing one of Prabhupada's disciples, he said, and she can't chant Sanskrit properly, and Prabhupada said, yeah, I know, but she has millions of times more love for Krishna than you will ever have. And so I think Prabhupada just succinctly put the essence of Krishna consciousness there. It's about love. It's not about Sanskrit pronunciation. So if you enter the pastimes in that mood, trying to understand, see, and experience the love that's going on in those lilas, then you can advance tremendously by hearing about them. But if you can't do that, it's better stay away until you can. But, it's kind of a catch-22, because the idea is that hearing those lilas will help you transcend your lust and help you understand what love is. But what we call love in this world is very much a physical and subtle, I call subtle physical attraction. You're attracted to the person, attracted to the personality of that person, the nature of that person, how you feel. I feel so good when I'm with this person. So when you feel good with someone, you call it love. Oh, I love you because I feel good when I'm with you. But we understand love is when you're solely focused on the pleasure of that other person. And that's so important for us to meditate on and hear about, right? So that's the idea. So it depends where you are. And to get, I think the real problem aside from not being qualified, is to only hear about the gopis. That would be a problem. Definitely a problem. I just hear about the gopis, nothing else, because, well, I won't say why you would do that. There could be different reasons. But if you're not qualified, that's dangerous. And that was not something that Prabhupada said as an example. He said, you hear everything. You hear all the Bhagavatam. Kishore Mani says, I'd love to see people meeting at the airport. Yeah, it's painful to see him going away. But the point is, as a devotee, you see everything in relation to Krishna. So when you see the meeting and you think, wow, what was it like when Gop Kumar met Krishna? It must have been amazing. No, the young military man's coming home, the parents are there. It's like intense, like very intense emotions, just like overwhelming. And they're crying in happiness, happy tears. And they said, wow. So you see that and you think, wow, I could just imagine what it would be like when I meet Krishna. No, actually, I can't even imagine. But we could say, yeah, we'd have to say, I can't imagine what it would be like. I try to imagine, but I can't. So that's, as devotees, that's how our world works. Everything's supposed to remind us of Krishna. So there's a beautiful young boy and a young girl, and they just got married, and, Radha Krishna. Yeah, that's real love. Or, the women aren't going to like this. They're going to think something's wrong with me. But I was driving down the street and I saw a young boy and a young girl together. It looked like, they were liked one another, loved one another enough that they'd want to get married. And he was a young man, happy young man, free as a bird. But if he gets married, then there are other responsibilities. And I was thinking, he's young and happy and free now, that he'll probably want to marry her, or if he marries her, he has no idea how difficult that's going to be. So that was my philosophical head going around that relationship. But of course it's true. He doesn't know how difficult it's going to be, and he will experience many difficulties in the pursuit of love. But that's just how we allow ourselves to think as devotees, right? We allow ourselves to think these ways. Yes? Women, are you going to kill me for thinking like that? Because the women might be looking at that and thinking, oh, the nice young boy, nice young girl, they're going to be so happily married. And I'm thinking, yeah, that's there also, but, there's dishes 10:30 at night when you're tired. Yeah, it's really, that would be a good... that would be a good T-shirt, something like, I'm having a tough time playing God. Playing God's not as easy as I thought. I'm having a hard time playing God. I came down here to play God and ended up washing dishes. Isn't it ironic? I came here to play God and blank, and what happened? I didn't anticipate. It's like you go on a vacation, and then there's a tsunami. It's like I didn't anticipate that. I came. There was a big storm at sea, and we went out, on this glass bottom boat to go see all the fish, and we almost died. We didn't anticipate that. So, I came to material world to play God, and now I'm working in a coal mine. I hadn't planned that one out. It's not easy to play God, is it? No, it's not. Even Balaram played Krishna, and he said, no, it's not easy. Even he has a hard time doing it. What to speak of us? Playing God is not easy. That would be a good line from a song. Gauravani, in his song, he said, my playing God is over. I surrender, oh yeah. Do. Surrender, you know that song? My playing God is over, and now I surrender. So Krishna says, okay, you can play God, but you're not really qualified to play God, and everything, you try to play God and everything just goes wrong because, well, I'll tell you the reason it goes wrong, because you're not God. That's the reason. I never thought of that. trying to play God and I'm not God. That's why it didn't work, huh? Because I'm not God. Yeah, that's why it doesn't work. You're not God. This is why you end up washing dishes. Krishna doesn't wash dishes at 10 at night when he's tired. Krishna doesn't work in coal mines. Krishna doesn't get beaten up by his wife and, made to feel like there's something wrong with him. Now, that playing God when you're not God, that's tough work. It doesn't work out well, as you know. Hare Krishna. Our president, he's like, you probably know what he's like. He's a bit about himself, But if you look at most of the news channels, it's so ironic because they're always making fun of him. So he wants to be like this perfect, godlike, lovable man. And every day in the media, there's just, the comedians are just making jokes about him. So, I say it's hard to play God. Even you're Donald Trump and you have all this wealth and you become president of the United States still. And, you're trying to play God and people are just making fun of you. Like all the time, the comedians make fun of him. Maybe more so than any president in the history. And so, it's like hard. It's hard work playing God, isn't it? Maybe that's the t-shirt. It's hard work trying to play God. Maybe I should retire from playing God. Maybe that would make my life easier. Oh, yeah, that's a good idea. Marco says, hearing and reading about Krishna lila with the gopis about Vrindavan and the spiritual world is like remembering something you never knew. I'm just now remembering what I never knew. That's another t-shirt. Vrindavan, remember something you never knew. Of course, some people would argue with that I did know it. But anyway, that's like all hope for a better past. Remembering what I never knew, yeah. See, Marco must be a good songwriter. There's another line for your song, next song. Airport is the most emotional place for me. When we welcome you and we say goodbye to you, it's always super emotional. Yeah, so I think the best thing is I just stay here in Alachua and I don't go anywhere. Because if I don't go anywhere, then we don't have this separation. It's just everything, it just stays neutral, like right now. Everything's fine. You don't have to feel this separation because I'm not there. A lot of times I feel like that. It's like, why did I come here? Because now everybody's saying, don't go, don't go. And I have to watch all these unhappy devotees at the airport watching me leave. And I think, well, if I never came here, we wouldn't have this horrible, miserable scene to deal with. I don't know if that's the real solution, but that's what I think sometimes. I do feel my heart when I hear kirtan and get very emotional. Very good. If you can cry for Krishna, you're fortunate. That's all I can say. I feel very nice and peaceful when I sing Jai Radha Madhava. Nice. When I chant Radha Madhava, I miss Radha Madhava from Mayapur. Nice. I feel prepared to listen to the class. Oh, okay. When I sing this, I feel I'm prepared to listen. Yeah, that's nice. We should have absolute faith in the holy name to cleanse our hearts full of lust. The mercy of Guru Gauranga. Yeah, it will cleanse. But, oh yeah. My wife is giving a seminar this Sunday. Oh, we are supposed to advertise this. There are the details. It's on marriage. If you're married, who should come to this seminar? Everyone who's married, wants to be married, divorced, on the way to divorce, on the rebound from divorce. In other words, everyone but the brahmacharis should hear it. And any brahmachari wanting to get married should hear it. And every brahmachari not sure if he should get married should hear it. In the Brihad Bhagavatam, and so there's the link. It's a free, it'll be like an hour and a half, and it's on the 4 harmful relationship behaviors. You may be doing one of these or all 4 of them and you don't know it. And then she explains how to counteract them. We all do them. But these are 4 things that have been shown to be the most harmful things for relationships. And if you're doing them and you don't stop doing them, you will destroy your relationship. Guaranteed, 100%. The solution to lust is to understand the practice, real love. This is today's title. Okay, you got that, Satyarupa? Anna has come up with today's title. John of Yogi John from Maine is with us. Nice to see you, John. The nice way to start the day is to hear, isn't it? Sankita says, sometimes people do chant out of their fear for karmic reaction. Or they might be feeling if they don't chant, they will go under drain. Have a bad day, you mean? My question is, if people do chant with fear, people do chant with fear of their future. How does chanting help them? Does chanting help if it's done in fear, or not because they want to chant, but they're forced to chant? It depends on who they are and what their position is in bhakti. You know what Prabhupada said about India? He said the dangerous thing about India is that Indians have the Vedas. So when Indians do something wrong, like cow killing or consuming alcohol and other things, they understand from their own Shastra, this is wrong, this is bad. There's specific things they understand that are bad that people of other countries don't. People of other religions may not understand. At least they may not understand it from a scriptural perspective, because they're like in the Bible, there's nothing about meat eating, not about being vegetarian. I mean, it's there, but it's camouflaged. The pastors have camouflaged it, so people aren't being told you have to be vegetarian, or they're told, well, sex is okay as long as it's in marriage. You can have as much as you want. Oh, some pastors say that. Just enjoy it as much as you want. But in India, there's more knowledge. So Prabhupada said, the more you know, the more you suffer when you don't follow. And the less you know, the less you suffer when you don't follow. So for us, if we're chanting the holy name out of fear that we could come back and take another birth, that's okay. But out of fear of some material situation where I need, so I'm actually chanting, asking Krishna to help me materially, that's considered an offense. So holy name is not meant for any kind of material blessing. If there's fear, which is related to my fear that I won't be a pure devotee, and I'm praying out of that, that's good. But for us, it's different than for someone on the street. So, someone on the street might say to you, oh, my mother's very ill, I'm afraid she might die. You go, oh, chant this mantra, it'll help you overcome fear. So for them, that's a step up. And it's not an offense for them because they don't know the offenses. They're just innocently chanting to protect their mother. And so they're getting purified. But for us, who know the offenses, who know right from wrong, who know the philosophy, then to chant for anything material is an offense. It has to be, if you're chanting for something material, it has to be in relation to Krishna, service, relation to your spiritual advancement. Hold on a second. Too much light. Yeah. Today we have dramatic effect. You know what dramatic effect is? You have more light on one side than the other. It's more interesting. That's what they say when you're making videos, right? A little more light here, yeah, dramatic effect. Could make it even darker. So, the execution of bhakti, or the execution of chanting, and its effectiveness and what's considered offensive or not offensive, depends on your knowledge. The more you know, the more you're responsible to act according to what you know. So if you know what is pure bhakti, anyabhilashito shunyam, pure bhakti is without material motive, and you're chanting the holy name, to get a better job, to overcome something material only for the sake of just being more comfortable materially, that would be considered offensive for you, but not for that person. So that person will chant and they will benefit. To some degree they will benefit. But eventually they have to come to the point of not committing the 10 offenses if they want to get love of Krishna. So it's stated in Shastra, it's an offense to the holy name to chant for something material. But for someone who just is given the holy name and doesn't know the offenses, it's not an offense. And so you have the example of the Jamil. It was not considered offensive because he was not chanting to become purified. But when you're chanting to become purified, the only way you can become purified sufficiently is to know the offenses and then avoid them. And then if you know the offenses, you commit them, then that's called offensive chanting. And it's not offensive if you don't know the offenses. But it's interesting, but that's what we learn from a Jamil and from other things in Shastra. So there will be some benefit, they will chant. And then if they evolve, then we say, well, here, now, these are the offenses, avoid these offenses. And the simple meaning of offensive chanting is chanting without the desire, without the intent of avoiding the offenses. That's Bhakti Siddhanta's definition of offensive chanting. Is that okay? That's all I have to say about that. Actually, something just came up. And on Saturday, we're going to do a little thing on japa for devotees in London. And at the end of the class, remind me and I'll tell you what time it is. Or it'll be advertised. And Radha Priya, if I forgot to tell you, then just remind me. Did you see that, Maharaj, that since you started talking about the spiritual world, the number of viewers have increased? Well, if you look at yesterday's class, it increased about the same time. And it's all the latecomers. It seems like around 10 to 9 is the magic hour, 10 minutes ago is the magic hour. Okay, so your book, Living Lewis and the Bhakti, is not available on Amazon India. How do we get it? Oh, there's Amazon India? Tell Guru Nishta. Or I can make a note of it. That is a shame. How did it not get on Amazon India? That's an oversight. Okay, we'll correct it. My seminar is not Sunday, it's tomorrow at 10. Okay. You want to put up the ad? Can you put up the ad here? Yeah. Yeah. And if you go on my Facebook page or somewhere, she speaks about what they're going to talk about in this seminar. Gabriella says, why some people do not experience transcendental emotions when they hear the Mahamantra? Even some of them don't like it or prefer to hear other types of mantras, different types of yoga. Maybe they were devotees of different gods in their past life. I mean, people who have cultivated a certain spiritual development, because everyone's evolved on a different level. So maybe in your last life you were a worshipper of Durga or Lord Shiva, and that just continues in this life. So coming to bhakti, to worship Krishna or Vishnu, it may be a gradual process. It also may be that they just haven't been exposed to pure devotees of Krishna, and they need more exposure. That's there also. And Prabhupada talks about that. So that sometimes people remain impersonalist because they never had association of pure devotees. And when they get that association, they change. And that's, as devotees, that's how we should normally think. Well, this person needs to learn more about Krishna. And if they learn more about Krishna, at least they have the opportunity right? And so that's how at least how I think. Okay, they may be a worshiper of so many persons, or they may not like the Mahamantra for whatever reason. So can we make the Mahamantra attractive? Can we help them chant in a better way? Can we entice them in some way? That's our job. Yes? Yes, it is. Will you visit? We will visit you in Alachua. Okay. Yes, it might be too hot for you here right now. It's like, I think Alachua's weather and Mayapur's weather are almost similar. Hare Krishna Bhakti Devi. She can tell you how hot it is. She's here. It should be Saturday. Look on the Facebook page for the ads, because they should be there. I understood it was Saturday. Actually, my wife never told me, because she's giving it. I asked her to tell me, but she never told me. You ever have that problem? Like, you live with somebody, but you can't get information out of them? Yeah, I'll give it to you later. The whole world knows when it is, except for me. So apparently it's tomorrow at 10. Is that correct? Yeah, she's really good. She's been doing marriage counseling for a while, and she studied with an institute called the Gottman Institute. So really good stuff. I learned things that I didn't really know. I thought I knew everything. Believe it or not, I didn't. I thought I knew everything about marriage. Believe it or not, there was something I didn't. There were a few things I didn't know. And I took one of the courses that she studied, I took with her. And I read the book, and I learned some amazing things. I don't know if I would say, maybe some of the things I learned weren't so obvious. Like, not common things you would hear from people. Say, oh yeah, when you're married, do this and that. So I found it really beneficial. And like with anything you're trying to do, sometimes you're failing at something just because there's a few things you don't know. Oh, I show you how to do it. Oh, I didn't know. Oh, you do it like that. Oh, I thought it was like this. No, it's not like that. It's like this. Oh, okay. So like with marriage, sometimes it's like that. Oh, I was doing this. No. That doesn't work. You have to do it like this. Oh, really? Yeah, try it. Oh, I tried it. It worked. It's like that. That's what the class is like a bit. Oh, I didn't know. Oh, that's why that doesn't work. So Marcus says, regarding the fact of not feeling ready or at the height of listening and participating in the exchanges of love between Krishna and the gopis, wouldn't it be fair to think that we too could aspire? Yes. To that elevated position of pure love. What the Shastra recommends is just be careful. Be careful to not think that I have that love. That's the main thing. And be careful to understand that that love is transcendental. It has nothing to do with mundane love. And then you can hear, you'll be okay. And yes, we all aspire for that love. And as you advance, you'll aspire for it more. If you aspire for a love of some person in this world, then you've about a ways to go. But naturally, we want to love, we want to find somebody to love. There was a song when I was young. With a line, don't you need somebody to love? Don't you want somebody to love? You've got to find somebody to love. It was like a really big song by a band called Jefferson Airplane, whatever the Jefferson Airplane meant. Who knows? Maybe they took some LSD and came up with that title. It doesn't make sense. Maybe there's sense behind it. But that was a really big song when we were young. And it's true. Don't you want somebody to love? Don't you need somebody to love? You better find, like you, it didn't say, don't you want somebody to love you? It said, don't you want somebody to love? So then we understand, yeah, everybody wants somebody to love. That's natural. And until we have love of Krishna, most people want to find someone, a man wants a woman wants a man to love. They want to have children to love, to express that. And then we understand that's really an expression of our need to love Krishna. So, good luck everyone in your journey to love Krishna. Tomorrow, Saturday the 20th, Master Class, The 4 Most Harmful Relationship Behaviors by John Link event. Okay, 10 o'clock tomorrow. What am I doing? I wonder if I'm free tomorrow at 10 o'clock. Okay, so let's mark it on your calendars, 10 o'clock. That is 10 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, and so you can add from there. That will be 7:30 p.m. in India. And that will be 2 p.m. in London, I guess 3 p.m. in Poland. That will be 7 a.m. in Los Angeles. That will be 11 p.m. in Australia. That will be 5 a.m. in Hawaii. You can't get one time that's good for everybody. 10 a.m. is, I chose 10 a.m. on Saturday, thinking, oh, that's 10 p.m. in China. You can't, maybe 8. 8 is better, but then you get China. And maybe 8 would have been better. This is the best time, actually, isn't it? It's not the ideal time for LA. It's a horrible time for Hawaii, but 8 a.m., 8 to 9:30 is a good time. Maybe we should have done it then. Anyway. Krishna Karshani says, you said in the spiritual world love is selfless because devotees don't have material bodies. So it seems that the needs of material body that we have to fulfill are stopping us from loving Krishna. Yeah, if we give in to those needs. Yeah. Obviously, material body is a bit of an impediment. It would be better to have a spiritual body. I'm wondering if a devotee can develop pure love, being in the material world, for feeling real pure love. A devotee has to. No, they can, because you detach from your material body, so you don't identify with it anymore, so it's not an impediment. Seems that even if a devotee is pure, still the body is calling to fulfill the needs. Yeah, it's true, but you're only fulfilling the needs to maintain the body in service. That's all. So that's the difference. And then there's a lot of needs that you control, because if there's no outlet for it, you control it. If you want to remain brahmachari, then you you control that need. Hare Krishna. Let's try another Chinese medicine. Let's see if that helps. And I was joking the other day, I take a Chinese medicine, think, oh, this is going to help me with my allergy. And then we find out, you're allergic to that medicine. That's why you're sneezing when you take it. Okay, let's see if I sneeze after I take this. Well, I guess. Hare Krishna. We'll do an experiment. See how many times I sneeze after I take this. As you advance in Krishna consciousness, of course, you become transcendental. So no problem. You're not in the bodily concept. And on a more advanced stage of Krishna consciousness, you have completely understood your relationship with Krishna in your spiritual body. So, although you have the external body to do these things, you're living within that spiritual form internally. That's where your mind is. So it's the same thing. You really don't have a material body. It looks like you do. But now you're connected on the spiritual platform. There's a verse in Sadharupa, what is that? The verse in Nectar Devotion about that. Sadharupena and Siddharupena. He exists in his sadhana rupa, but internally in his siddha rupa. Siddharupa Chatrahi Sadarupena something. I forget. That verse is quoted in relation to Raganuga Bhakti, where you're Japa on Saturday. Okay, hold on, everyone. Don't go anywhere. We'll put you on pause and we'll be right back. Problem. Same time. They just asked me yesterday, and I looked at my calendar. And because my wife never told me what time this class was, I didn't have it on my calendar. So then the East London devotee said, can you come for 2 hours? I can see if we can come later, but it's at 10 o'clock. Same time as the marriage ceremony. Not marriage ceremony, same time as the marriage class. So maybe I can renegotiate that. Or maybe you could, yeah. Anyway, we have a japa session on, today's Friday, right? We have a japa session today at 12 in an hour and 40 minutes. There's the link for my wife's class. More information on my Facebook. Okay, Jefferson Airplane. Another song about love. What song is that? So many songs. Everybody's singing about love. It's the most coveted emotion. Isn't it difficult to detach with family while you are living with husband, son, mother, brother? Yes. How can one stay with family and stay detached? I think the answer to your question would apply to any kind of attachment and detachment. You could ask the question, how could I be detached in the midst of blank? It could be a beautiful home. It could be wealth. How could I be detached if I'm like so talented that I can really enjoy? Like I play the keyboard so well that I could just play and I just enjoy it so much. How can I be detached from anything? Of course, from family, and that's where the strongest attachment is, but it's the same principle. What you find, Sangiti, is that detachment is not an artificial process. Detachment is a natural process of advancing, because as you become attached to Krishna, Krishna becomes more and more attractive. And as you're relishing Krishna consciousness, in relation to that, other things just pale, become like, It's kind of like, I used to like this until I found this. Right? I used to like my mother's cooking until I got married and my wife is a better cook. Or vice versa. I never knew how good a cook my mother was until I got married. Hope that doesn't happen to you. But for this example, let's say your wife's a better cook than your mother. So, and I used to love this preparation my mother made, but my wife makes it and it's 10 times better. So I don't really care about that preparation anymore. I don't think about my mother's kofta because my wife's kofta is better. Or it's like that. It happens naturally. It's like, in one sense, we say we should be detached as a practice, right? But there's another sense that like you don't have to worry about detachment, because when you advance, you become more attracted to Krishna. And when you become more attracted to Krishna, naturally, things are not interesting. After Nishta is a stage called Ruchi. And Ruchi means taste. Well, taste for what? It's a taste for everything in Krishna consciousness. So just imagine, Sangita, imagine this. Imagine that everything in Krishna consciousness that you're doing right now. You're chanting, you're hearing, your puja, you're studying, everything. The taste for that increased, let's say, 100 times. So it was like, when you chanted, it was an amazing experience. When you read Bhagavatam, just amazing experience. When you worship your deities, just amazing experience, like 100 times greater than it is now. If that were the case, you wouldn't have this question. And you would totally understand that you have affection for your husband because he's a devotee, affection for your family because they're devotees. But your heart and your real attachment is completely connected to Krishna. That's where you get your life and your soul. It would just happen naturally. It's not like you don't care about them. And also, what's happening is your attachment for them, it's taking a different position. Oh, I'm attached to him as a devotee. I'm attached to my children as devotees, to helping them in their bhakti, to ensuring that they advance. Does that make sense? So, in that sense, this question is a bit theoretical, and in a sense, I don't want to say entirely, but in a sense, something we don't have to worry about because it takes care of itself as you advance in Krishna consciousness. I know many women who, when their daughters are maybe like in their early 20s, 25 or so, and their daughters, don't really need their help anymore, and they think, I gave 25 years of my life to my daughter. Now I just want to focus back more, not back, but focus more on my Krishna consciousness. And I see this kind of detachment where they just go, she's going to do whatever, the mother attachment. What are you going to do? How's this going to work? You're helping. And at a certain point, it's just like, she's going to do whatever she's going to do. I can't spend the rest of my life trying to help a situation like this. I need to focus on my own bhakti. So I've seen a lot of detachment naturally come, partially because of the practical situation materially, and also because of their attachment to Krishna consciousness. Or you could say because of their desire to become more attached to Krishna consciousness. So it's a natural process. And the material world will also detach you, because your son will grow up, your daughter will grow up, and they'll become detached from you. And you and your mother, your brother, it's like they have their own lives, so it's like, and you'll just understand, if I'm too attached, I'll suffer tremendously when they're no longer with us. Well, we didn't get to read today. That's interesting. That's like 3 days in a row. Huh? We didn't read. I heard it in a seminar by Indra Prabhu that ISKCON, being Rupanuga, aligned with Sri Rupa Goswami, intends to bring us to Raganuga Bhakti in the feeling of Braj Bhav, and not in the feeling different. Yes. Not in the feeling different from what the inhabitants of Vrindavan experience. Yes, true. Is it right to aspire to this without imitating or feeling so elevated? Well, always being humble. Yeah, I mean, as Prabhupada said, your aspirations should be in proportion to your advancement. So we should always aspire for something better, right? But your aspiration has to be qualified by your own qualification for it. You might say, well, I aspire to chant pure holy name. Yeah, that's very good. We should all aspire that. Or I aspire to enter into Braj in the mood of residence of Vrindavan. That's good. So that's a general aspiration. That's not a problem. But to have a specific, to be very specific about the aspiration, to, feel this bhava when I chant, or to enter into this relationship in this particular mood, exactly. That requires a little more qualification. And we were talking, I don't know if it was in our morning classes, we were talking about, I think it was in the evening class, about aspirations sometimes can just be, what's the word? You're just taking a little microscopic is not the word. There's a word, I can't think of it. When your aspirations could be in micro steps, for lack of a better word right now. So I want to enter into this mood of the residents in Braj, and then I say, well, what's the next step from where you're at now to get closer to that? So sometimes you have to do it that way because you're not fully qualified. What's the next step? And you might say, okay, the next step is I want to reread the Bhagavatam, or I've just finished reading the Bhagavatam, I want to reread the 10th canto. Okay, or I'll read the Krishna book. Okay, that's a good next step. So you're maintaining that mood, and you're taking steps which are suitable for where you are. As the saying goes, if you can digest 10 chapatis, eat them. If you can't, you're going to get, and you eat 10 chapatis, you're going to get indigestion. So it's basically a process of building up your digestion to be able to digest higher and higher things. And I think that plays into what I was speaking about in the beginning when I was saying that you're chanting, and as you advance, you'll experience more. So you're having a stronger digestion. You're able to digest the holy name, the lila, and so forth. You're able to digest it, so you can go more deeply, or you can go higher because you can digest it. Otherwise, you'll get indigestion, and indigestion means your food turns to poison. So I think it's a good example. Right? So as long as you have the digestion, no problem. If you don't, the thing which is healthy becomes poisonous because it's not digested. In fact, I think that's a perfect example to illustrate that. Yes, I was reading the same one. My daughter said there are 3 volumes. Is that true? Brihad Bhagavatamrita? I thought there were only 2. Published by the BBT. Okay, so we're going to end here. It's 9:30 in my time, and so in 2.5 hours we're going to chant japa if you would like. And I think that's been advertised. And so, Anuradha, can you put in the address? I think it's our personal site. If you're Anuradha, if you're here, you could put in the address for that. It's my personal Zoom account, which I don't even know the address for, because I never started a Zoom meeting. Everyone else always started it. Which the class tomorrow's on Zoom, and I have to figure out who's going to manage it, since I've never done it. Okay. Hare Krishna. Oh, comment. Is preaching a primary anga of bhakti, or is it meant to bring us to a point of developing a genuine taste for the primary angas? Well, in Prabhupada's book, it's the essence. Preaching is the essence. It's not listed as one of the items per se. I mean, you could say it comes under kirtan. You can look at it as kirtan. Kirtan means chanting, and it means speaking about Krishna. So in that sense, it's kirtan. But, preaching is also hearing, because people you speak to are hearing. And it's also kirtan, chanting, because we introduce chanting. It's also remembering, because when we speak, we remember, we talk about Krishna lila. So there's so many things. And we know it was something that Prabhupada pushed us to do more and more. Okay? So yeah, you could say it's the main anga. They're 3 volumes, and they're all like 800 pages. How do we know how much we can digest? Well, if you become a sahajiya, then you know you ate too much. Here's the link for japa. Okay. How do you know how much you can digest? Then you'll have to see. You know, if you're hearing and it's helping you become more Krishna conscious, it's freeing you from your lust, yeah, then that's good. If it's causing you to become more lustful, or you read it and you're just like, I can't understand this at all, then yeah, forget it. But Krishna book is good because there's so much philosophy there. So maybe reading it that way might be better. Okay, thank you very much. If you want to chant, we'll see you in 2.5 hours. And oh yeah, I'm doing a course today at 1 o'clock. That's for the Pandavasena. If you're part of the Pandavasena, I think it's a closed course on marriage for the Pandavasena, and that's at 1 o'clock today, 1 to 3. But I think it's just for them. I don't think they'll let you in if you're not part of them, the group Pandavasena in London. Hare Krishna. Okay, thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Gaur Premanandi. Hare Hare Bol.